When we think back to memorable spots and moments in wrestling, we immediately recreate these iconic images in our minds. Then we rewatch them and relive how awesome they truly were. But what if I told you that some of these moments actually happened somewhere else first, and you probably don't remember them? Well, it's time to remind you, because here is a list of 10 iconic moments that had actually happened somewhere else first. Edge spearing Jeff Hardy off the ladder in the TLC match at WrestleMania 17 is one of the most famous moments in WWE history. But this wasn't the first time the two had performed the spot together, as 6 months prior on an episode of Raw, Edge would spear Jeff in mid-air whilst coming off a smaller ladder compared to the one at WrestleMania 17. The fact that this was from a smaller ladder and done during an unadvertised match on Raw means this one often gets overlooked. While Jeff may have been on the receiving end there, he pulls out all the stops for this next high-risk maneuver, as Jeff performed a swanton bomb off the cage only to miss and crash down to the mat in an iconic moment at Survivor Series 2001. But believe it or not, Jeff actually did this exact spot at the end of a 1999 cage match on Raw versus Edge and Christian, where he would again crash and burn. Hardy did finally manage to hit a move off the cage in a match against Umaga on the January 7, 2008 Raw, but this time it was a whisper in the wind. It's fondly remembered by fans, especially because Jeff was one of the most over talents in the company at the time, which made it that much more special. However, as with the Swanton, Jeff actually performed this exact move nearly 8 years earlier in again a cage match against Edge and Christian at Unforgiven 2000. Granted, it wasn't as impressive here as he didn't get much of a connection on either man. As we saw with Jeff Hardy, jumping off the cage is very much hit or miss. However, that still hasn't stopped wrestlers continuing to do it. Cody Rhodes was another to find out the dangers of taking such a risk when he moonsaulted from the top of the cage onto Road Dogg in the ring back in February 2014. However, Cody had actually done this just a month prior at a house show in Madison Square Garden. More recently, Rhodes would suffer a broken toe after hitting this moonsault on AEW Dynamite in early 2020. So far, we've seen the risk superstars are willing to take, and Brock Lesnar was no different at WrestleMania 19 when he challenged Kurt Angle for the WWE title. Lesnar would head to the top rope and go for a shooting star press, only to miss and land straight on his head. One might think Brock was in unfamiliar territory on the top turnbuckle, but Lesnar had actually previously done the shooting star press correctly back in his early days at OVW and during some of his WWF dark matches. Much like Brock tried out a different move in the first years of his career, Triple H would do the same. Triple H would use a cutter starting out in WWF before settling on the iconic pedigree, although Hunter wasn't the first person to use the pedigree, as Andre the Giant actually innovated the move in the 1970s in Japan. When we think of Andre, we immediately think of Hulk Hogan body slamming him in the main event of WrestleMania 3. But in fact, Hogan had already done so 4 years previous in a match at Shea Stadium in New York. Just like WrestleMania 3 was a crowning moment for Hulk Hogan, WrestleMania 20 would be Chris Benoit's greatest achievement as he finally captured a world championship in WWE. Although, did you know that this wasn't Benoit's first world title win? The Crippler first became world champion on his final night in WCW prior to joining WWF, when he defeated Sid Vicious at Sold Out 2000. From a crowning moment to perhaps the most shocking moment, who could forget when Kane would finally unmask? Kane's face was on show for all to see, but he had been partially unmasked in WWE before. First at the hands of DX on Raw in 2000, and then just a few months later in a SummerSlam match versus the legendary Undertaker. Now from a legend to a legend killer, Randy Orton is well renowned for taking out many legends throughout his career, eventually evolving into the Viper, where he would devastate the WWE locker room with his vicious punt kick. Orton didn't actually start using the punt kick regularly until 2007, but in 2003, Orton would use the move when kicking the hardcore legend Mick Foley down a flight of stairs on Raw. A first will always be significant, and the first ever ladder match on WWF programming was no different. This match is so fondly remembered and loved by wrestling fans that it's very easy to forget that Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart had actually done this match before. However, it was never televised, and it occurred at a WWF house show in Portland in the summer of 1992. The match later came to light after it was featured on the 2007 ladder match DVD set produced by WWE. So there you have it, 10 iconic moments that had actually happened somewhere else first. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to see some more similar content to this, check out our video on 5 Royal Rumble eliminations that weren't supposed to happen. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.